The thing about Venice that most people don't know, and I've known for 60 years, because I first came here in my car way back in 1966, I think it was, might have been 1965. And I discovered you could put the car on the ferry from the mainland to the Lido. You can then park it in the garage for the Excelsior Hotel in the Lido, another one of my favourite ever hotels, and you then spend the day in your suite on the Excelsior, overlooking the sea, out on the balcony, having your coffee in the mornings, which is wonderful. You go down to the pool, which is a fantastic pool in the late morning, and you swim all day long until the middle of the afternoon, and then you get the hotel boat, which goes every half hour from the hotel into Venice proper, and you spend the rest of the afternoon in Venice, and you eat in one of their great restaurants in the evening, and you get the little boat back to the hotel and sleep that night on the Lido. The Lido is fantastic, the hotel is glorious, and Venice itself, of course, is fantastic. But I have to tell you, I've noticed a real change in the last year. People often ask me how I can do these enormous long drives, 20,000, 25,000 miles each trip. One of the reasons I started doing this A Victim Bites Back series. I do love driving. I've loved driving ever since I was small. I'm not worried about driving on the wrong side of the road, or as I rather think of it, the right side of the road. It's the UK that drives on the wrong side of the road. I can't quite work out which it is, right or left, but anyway, I'm quite used to doing both, to be honest, because that's the way things are, and you get very used to it. And I drive, even if I'm not in my own car, which is obviously a right-hand drive car. Whenever I fly somewhere on the horrible aeroplanes, I try and do less and less these days. I always hire a car when I get to wherever I'm going. A, because I find it's a great way of getting to know the town and the place and the people and the country. But B, and exactly as I'm doing now, even bombing down the motorways at 150 miles an hour, kilometres an hour, which is about 90 miles an hour, it's fantastic what you see. And looking at the countryside and everything tells you an awful lot about the people and the area and everything else. I think possibly my favourite country of all for that is Italy. I've already mentioned how that road around from Nice to Rome, around that sort of hook of Italy, is fantastic. But just driving through the centre of Italy, from Florence to Rome, or Rome back to Florence, or up to Venice, or wherever, it is great. You see so many fabulous places, sort of ruins and castles and chateaus and things. Don't think they call them chateaus in Italy. But also incredible mountain villages and small towns perched on top of these hills and everything. And it really is, every corner you turn round, there's something else you see and you go, do you know what? That must be exactly what the Romans saw 1,000 years ago, when civilization existed here in Italy long before it existed in the United Kingdom. And I love that. It's absolutely fabulous looking at it and seeing all the difference and all the things that have changed, but also the main areas that have remained exactly the same for thousands of years. People tilling the earth and ploughing the fields and living without the internet and telephones and all these modern contraptions like cars. I love driving, and I love driving around the world. You get into Venice from the mainland across the most enormously long bridge, and then you reach the area where you put your car on the ferry to the Lido. Of course, actually, although The Victim Bites Back is meant to be a look at various places I visit as much as my opinions and thoughts on various things, what is captivating most people at the moment is the general election coming up at any moment. And I have to tell you, I won't repeat myself, or I'll try not to repeat myself, very difficult at my age, but I think it really doesn't make any difference, if any, a small amount of difference. All the parties are pretty incompetent. The public, we the voters, tend to vote simply on the image of the person, whether they look good, have got nice hair. If the media tells us that we ought to vote for them because they're lovely human beings who are kind to animals and have happy family lives, and we vote accordingly, with our prejudices, like we don't want people of different colour skin in our country, please, and so on. And that's what happens. As I've said before, I think we really ought to revert to a constitutional monarchy, as happened in the good old days of Victoria, when the quite often very capable king or queen of the country, and I think Elizabeth II was fantastic. I think Charles is very bright and very good, and William looks as though he's going to be a good king too, and I think they should choose who they think should be Prime Minister after the election is held, and then they should instruct that person to choose the ministers from all the MPs that are elected and all other people who may be available. There may be somebody who's not an MP but is an expert at economics, for example, and to then run the country for the next 4 or 5 years, have a general election to elect various parties, but the job of the Prime Minister is to choose the various ministers who run all the departments, and his job is given to him and selected by the King or Queen, who I think is in a much better position to do so than we, the public, who know nothing.
Broken and love that's untrue, these go with learning the game. When you love her and she doesn't love you, you're only learning the game. When she says that you're the only one she'll ever love, then you find that you are not the one she's thinking of, feeling so sad and you're all alone.
Buddy Holly, who wrote that and originally recorded it, died so young and was so talented. Talking about people who are talented, how about Donald Trump and Joe Biden in that debate? I have to say, much though I can't stand Donald Trump, he was so far better than Joe Biden, who was absolutely disastrous. I'm sorry for America. They have almost as bad a choice to make in their election in November as we poor Brits have got this week. I mean, Sunak versus Starmer, wankers. Trump versus Biden, wankers. None of them are capable of running a corner shop, let alone a country. The problem with Venice has always been tourists. For a start, they used to have the horrendous tour boats that absolutely were enormous and used to completely block up the view of St. Mark's and the square and the city for anybody on the actual sailing on the actual sea. And that was awful, pumping awful pollution into the air as well. But secondly, the tourists themselves that just pack the streets so that in some of the places it's almost impossible to walk, which is really very unpleasant. And then thirdly, sprung up around the tourist industry, I suppose many years ago, 100 years ago, are the shops and the stalls. It's the stalls I really object to, selling absolute tat. Quite often sunglasses or hats with I love Venice and other such stupid things on them, and other such stupid, ridiculous, absurd slogans, ghastly miniature statues and views and dreadful postcards and everything else. And those seem to have multiplied over the past few years. Now, they brought in a special tax for tourists arriving in Venice, which you're meant to pay. Actually, it hasn't happened to me. I think the hotel takes care of such things like that. But it hasn't done any good. There's still millions of tourists all the way through the season, which is essentially April to November. And it's absolutely appalling when they have a festival. They have a film festival there and numerous other festivals. On all those levels, it really just gets packed out with tourists. And I hate tourists. Now, you might say, how can I hate tourists? Because I am a tourist, which indeed I suppose I am. Although after 60 years coming to Venice, I feel like a resident, to be honest. I've probably spent longer here than most other people, most people who live here. But tourists generally are rude. They never say thank you or please. They snap about the prices and the quality of things and all the rest of it. They generally appear to be fat. I mean, this may be general in the world that people now generally are fat. And I've come to really dislike fat people, mostly because most fat people have got fat brains, with the result that actually they can't think or behave in a normal fashion. So they behave more like the sort of brains that you eat on a plate. Delicious. I love them, actually. Veal's, calves' brains, one of my favourite delicacies. But they behave like that. It's sort of fat goes everywhere, and it goes to their joints, their fingers, their attitude to life, their approach, their thinking. Yes, admittedly, there's many fat people who can't help being fat. It's something to do with their genes and all the rest of it. But most fat people are fat because they eat too much, drink too much, don't exercise enough, allow themselves to sit around. And looking at some of the fat people in the pools here in Venice and in other places is really quite frightening, because you see these reams of glutinous, ghastly flesh pouring out of every crack and crevice, and it really is not just unattractive but offensive. Sorry about that if you happen to be fat.
Your stars they come apart. They'll see it's alright with me. People will say, people will say, people will say we're in love.
Don't get me wrong, I still love Venice. People will say we're in love. And it is a gorgeous place to visit. It's unusual, it's different, it's unlike anywhere else. What I strongly suggest is that you do it the way I do it. Stay on the Lido and spend all day on the wonderful beach or swimming in the super pools. There's lots of other hotels, many of which, in fact all of which, are far less expensive than the Excelsior. And then go in the afternoon and look at wonderful Venice with the canals and all the gondolas and the little nooks and crannies with the beautiful flowers and little tiny restaurants with great food still, and people who actually live there and hang their washing out of their windows and lead a life all year long. It really is an incredible and very unusual city. And go and look at the museums and do all the touristy things. Enjoy yourself. Don't be put off by the incredible amount of tourists behaving very badly and the horrible stalls selling every kind of tat. I love Venice, I love the Lido, I've been coming here for 60 years, man and boy, and believe me, I'm no longer a boy, these days I'm very much a man. You may also have rather missed my reviews of the films, television, radio, and so on, but I have got one that I thoroughly recommend. Douglas is Cancelled. It's on ITV. It's very well written, it's very funny, it's very accurate, and it's actually very good. So if you've not caught it yet, I suggest you sign up to ITVX, which actually I really like. And they do have very good shows every now and again. And watch Douglas is Cancelled. Believe me, it's well worth it. So I tend to leave Venice after I've done my wandering around and enjoying myself and perhaps having my evening meal. The hotel lays on a really efficient boat service, which basically takes you in and out of from the Lido to the city and back again. And it leaves, I think, every half hour or so. So you really can get it very easily. It's free for people who stay in the hotel. And I think the odd person who doesn't, but who uses it a lot, tends to sneak onto it. And then it whisks you back out, and you're back on the Lido and enjoying yourself for the rest of the day, swimming in the pool, looking at all the people on the beach, and just having a thoroughly pleasant time. So there we go. That's Venice. If you're going to vote, and my strong suggestion actually we're probably all better off not voting, I'm still not decided what I'm going to do. I may vote for somebody other than Labour, who will almost certainly get in. My place in London, my constituency is these days nearly all Labour. It used to be Conservative, and actually I was very friendly with the local Conservative MP Mark Field, who was a good guy. He's the guy, if you remember, who attacked some of the people who tried to invade a do and wrestled one of them to the ground. They were all sort of masked and covered in balaclavas and things, and it turned out that the person he wrestled to the ground was a woman. And immediately, of course, with the usual stupidity of the media and the simplification and everything, they accused him of the most appalling crime, abusing a woman, bringing a woman down. She could have been a terrorist. She could have had a gun. She could have been carrying a hand grenade. Who knows? I thought he was actually very brave and very good, but he'd ended his career, and then they changed the boundaries, and my area became very Labour again. I did vote for Labour when Corbyn was standing because I liked Corbyn and thought he was a decent, honest, honourable man. I still do, and I'm absolutely certain he's going to win in Islington, and good luck to him. But never mind, depending on what you're going to do, you do what your conscience tells you, but always remember, you probably don't know a thing about the person or the party you're voting for, and you're only doing so because you like their smile, very attractive smile, like my rather attractive, slightly crooked smile. Or you like the way their hair cut, or you like the fact that they've got a very smart, neat moustache and beard. Whatever reason you want to vote, vote, but do remember that you don't know a thing about their capability, what the party is going to do. None of them do anything they say they're going to do. Whatever you do, put your cross in the box and enjoy yourselves. See you next time for A Victim Bites Back.